Today's video is sponsored by AVerMedia and their Go series of capture cards. For more information, stay tuned for a little bit later into the video. Alrighty folks, welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games, and today we have a lot to get into when it comes to nerdy and Nintendo numbers. We have their forecasts for the Switch 2 as well as the Switch 1 for fiscal year 2026, or really the remainder of 2025 and the first couple of months of 2026 in calendar terms. We have their software sales for games like Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, as well as the lack of sales for Xenoblade Chronicles X, which is pretty disappointing, as well as just a bunch of different numbers to talk about. So that's what we're getting into today. Of course, if you are new here and you enjoy content like this pretty much each and every day, I would appreciate you liking the video and subscribing. Let's get into it. Okay, so we are going to be taking a look at all of the updated sales numbers for Nintendo Switch software, as well as their hardware and forecasts for Switch 2. Very interesting stuff to say the least when it comes to their Switch 2 forecast for this year. Now, Nintendo has these slides on their website. I'll have this link down below for you to look through yourself. We are not going to be using this because, frankly, a lot of these terms, it's all in yen, it's all a little bit more confusing. We are going to be taking a look at this Twitter account, Pierre485_ or X account, I should say. This person makes incredible sales graphs going over everything from Nintendo's financial meetings, and they make these really nice graphs that we'll take a look at here. There are a few things I want to look at on Nintendo's official slides, though. Most notably here, to scroll down, they have their annual playing users for the very first time in the life cycle of the Nintendo Switch. They actually saw a decline. So I mean, it's kind of surprising it took this long, you know? This is something I've been focusing on a lot in my videos, especially when we were, you know, at war of whether or not Switch 2 was a 2024 thing or a 2025 thing. The annual playing users count just kept rising year over year, and for a lot of their software, it felt like the software sales weren't really slowing down too much, at least in terms of some key first-party titles. Well, now for the first time in the past fiscal year, so from April 2024 to March of 2025, they actually saw a decline. Now, the decline is only it's only 1 million, but still, we're 8 years into the Switch now, and they are finally dropping off. It's almost like they have something new coming out. People are lapsed. They're waiting to buy something new here, and I imagine this will go back up next time we see this number come around with the Switch 2. Also, just want to show this real quick. They have their first-party slate for Switch 1. Forgotten game already, Pokemon Champions. I keep forgetting this is even a thing that they announced. But Legends EA, Metroid Prime Beyond this year, as well as Rhythm Heaven Groove and Tomodachi Life and Pokemon Champions next year. And then for Switch 2, they have their full slate here as well with Mario Kart World, DK Bonanza, Welcome Tour are the only dated games, at least in terms of totally new things. Dragon Drive this summer, Kirby Air Riders. They have a whole separate section here for Switch 2 Edition first-party software, including Legends EA, Metroid Prime, and then as well as a little slide showing off some third-party stuff. Interestingly, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment and the Duskbloods are here. Duskbloods is still up in the air, I feel like, in terms of if Nintendo's actually going to publish it worldwide. Hyrule Warriors, and they get to that here, that is a Koei Tecmo thing. Koei Tecmo publishes all Warriors games in Japan, and I think that should be down here. Yeah, here we go. So we have their slate here, and on this slate, because Nintendo will be publishing it, you know, worldwide in like America and Europe, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment is listed as a Nintendo title coming this winter, but Duskbloods isn't, so we will see if Nintendo ends up publishing it. I think there is some sort of agreement there, but at the very least, it's not on the scale of an Age of Imprisonment contract. So we'll see what happens with Duskbloods, but this is the full lineup for Nintendo coming in through 2026. Not a bad lineup, if I do say so myself. I mean, I've done so many videos talking about this already, but I mean, that's a lot of games. It's so funny because a couple weeks ago, there was nothing here, and now it's a full slate. A lot of Switch 2 editions, though. But yeah, like I said, if you want to look through all of that for yourself, I'll have it linked down below. But we're going to take a look at Pierre485 here on Twitter. Once again, huge shout out. I always cite this user on X because they make the best graphs. So we'll talk about Switch 1 first. Nintendo Switch shipped 1.26 million units this quarter, down from 1.96 million units last year, so a drop of 36%, as a pretty steep decline in Switch hardware sales. Now 152.12 million consoles to date, with 10.8 million consoles shipped during the fiscal year. Nintendo is currently forecasting 4.5 million units in the next 12 months. So Nintendo is expecting a massive decline when it comes to Switch 1 sales, which makes sense. They're releasing new hardware. That is still still more than I thought, though. Like, that's a bigger decline than I expected. The Switch is at 152 million. It's very close to passing the DS. It will pass the DS this year. I think it's about a 2 million or so difference. So they're gonna pass DS and become it's gonna become Nintendo's best-selling console. The question then becomes, can it get to 160? And if they're forecasting 4.5 million this fiscal year, as Pierre had in their chart here, I mean, they're not gonna hit it next year, or I should say, they're not gonna hit it by March 31st of next year. But by holiday next year, if they finally do cut the price, if the Switch 1 is, you know, kind of passingly on store shelves as a cheaper option through even like holiday 2027. I think eventually you see Nintendo get to that 160 range and pass the PS2, but I do think based on the numbers we saw today and what they're forecasting, it's going to take a little bit longer than I thought. I was under the impression that they would be able to do it by maybe not this holiday, but, you know, probably like mid-2026. As it stands with what they're saying here, doesn't look too likely. Tomodachi Life Living the Dream is going to be a huge boost next year, but really, that game doesn't have a Switch 2 edition announced right now, but that's more so going to impact Switch 2 sales, I imagine. Same thing with like Legend ZA. Pokemon is a system seller, but also there's 150 million Switches out there. How many people that want to play Legend ZA don't already have a Switch? If anything, those people will just be buying a Switch 2 to play the Switch 2 version. So, weaker sales for the Switch 1 overall than I expected. Weaker forecast for the following year. I think initially Nintendo was forecasting 15 million for this fiscal year, and they only did just under 11. So that's not very good. But also, it's a console in its 8th year. The fact that it sold, you know, almost 11 million is still like really good overall. It's just less than we expected. I love this chart here. You can see the Switch hardware sales by model, and as you can see, the OLED has just dwarfed everything else. I really thought the Switch Lite would kind of keep hanging on at $200. It's such a cheap entry point. They do those Animal Crossing bundles around the holidays, but even with the Switch Lite being so much cheaper, it's still not doing too well here. Last holiday, to be fair, it did do better than the base Switch, because who's buying a base Switch? Even the bundles last year, I think, with like Mario Kart and Mario Wonder, those were OLEDs. So not too many people buying a base Switch anymore. Not too many people buying a Switch Lite. It's really all in on those OLED purchases. But of course, the big news here, and what I think we all want to really talk about, we'll get to games in just a second. Nintendo is forecasting 15 million units for Switch 2 hardware this fiscal year, ending March 31st, 2026. This would make it the fastest selling system ever in terms of units sold, and that would be about a 9-month period. Pierre also says here the company is also anticipating to distribute 45 million Switch 2 games or software during the same period. And yeah, we can see that on Nintendo's own slides here, 15 million hardware, 45 million software. So this would make it the fastest selling console of all time if they do sell that many units by March 31st. However, what's funny is, despite that, I'm still seeing a lot of analysts and other people say, well, that's actually pretty conservative. Nintendo's being very conservative with their number. The expectation for Switch 2 is actually more in line with somewhere in the ballpark of like 18 to 20 million. People are expecting this thing to do crazy, crazy numbers. So this could mean a couple of things. It could mean that Nintendo just wants to, you know, play it safe and say a lower number, even though that would still be a, you know, a crazy achievement and accomplishment if it does sell 15 million. The expectation is higher, so maybe Nintendo is trying to play it safe and just, you know, be like, okay, well, 15 million, and then if it does that, well, that's a great thing, and if it does more than that, that's even better. To me, when I look at that number, though, I feel like it's more reflective of how many units Switch 2 will actually have manufactured over the course of this fiscal year. It's not like we're talking about year 6 or year 7 of a console. It is extremely likely that the Switch 2 will pretty much sell out whenever it is stocked from now until next spring. Maybe you start seeing stock plentiful in early January, February, that kind of thing. But at least through the holiday period this year, I'm not expecting you to be able to go into a store and buy a Switch 2, at least not in Nintendo's primary markets of, you know, North America as well as Japan. So 15 million to me is Nintendo indirectly saying, we're going to have about 15 million of them. Maybe they'll be able to produce more, but as it stands, it looks like they're only confident in 15 million Switch 2s over the next year. And with all the other analysts and with all the other predictions being higher than 15 million, in that, like I said, 18 to 20 million ballpark, it just goes to show that the demand for this console is very high. And if my theory is right in that they think they can only make around 15 million, then yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that aren't able to get one in the next, you know, 9 to 10 months. So we'll see what happens here. I mean, 15 million is certainly no number to scoff at. It's not super high above the Nintendo Switch 1. I think the Switch 1 sold around like 200,000 less than that in a similar time frame. Of course, the Switch 1 launched in March versus the Switch 2 launching in June, but you know, that like 9-month window, if it sells exactly 50 million, it will just barely do a little bit better than that. But once again, I think it really just comes down to how many units they actually get on store shelves. But with that said, let's talk about the game software sales on a Nintendo Switch 1 after a word from this video's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by AVerMedia and their Go series of capture cards. As someone running 2 YouTube channels, I'm always needing to record my gameplay, and sometimes I just don't want to sit at my desk doing it. I want to relax in the living room, on the couch, in the recliner, playing my games in a comfortable space. And that's where this comes in, the AVerMedia Extra Go. Designed for use with portable PCs like the Steam Deck and Nintendo Switch, the Extra Go lets you record gameplay straight to an SD card. You don't need a fancy PC setup, you don't need another capture card and a ton of different wires. It is one simple solution for recording without a PC. This is great for me because I really don't like sitting here at my desk when I want to play a game for several hours in a row. So being able to hook up this bad boy in the other room has already been a game changer for me in how I produce content. Of course, this also works great for creators on the go. If you travel a lot and want a simple solution for recording without a laptop or a PC, the Extra Go has you covered. It supports up to 4K 30 FPS recording or even 1080 120 FPS recording, all straight to a micro SD card with just the click of one button. I'm actually very excited about that 120 FPS recording option. YouTube doesn't even support it. However, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond has a 1080p 120 FPS option, so this is how I'll be recording all of my Metroid Prime 4 footage. Setup is smooth, requiring only one HDMI cable, a power source, and a USB-C to connect to your device. You don't even need a Switch dock around. It works as its own dock. There's also the Go Elite and Go Core, which offer an extremely compact capture option for use with a PC, with a laptop, if you want to go that route. These things are insanely small. I kind of can't believe. I mean, it's literally just a power brick, but it also works as a dock and as a capture card. That's nuts. For more information on AVerMedia and their Go series of capture cards, please click the link in the description below to learn more and support the channel. Thanks again to AVerMedia for sponsoring today's video. Alrighty then, time to talk about game software sales. Some very juicy stuff here. I'm gonna address this now, elephant in the room. Xenoblade Chronicles X does not have reported numbers. Now, to be fair to Xenoblade, it released on March 20th. These numbers are only as of March 31st. However, I feel like the fact it didn't hit 1 million in that launch period is not a great thing, right? No matter what, it's not a great thing. Usually you see the influx of sales when a game first comes out. Hopefully it does cross that 1 million threshold and we find out eventually in the coming months, maybe by the end of the year after it has a Christmas, although Xenoblade not really a thing that I feel like will sell as a Christmas game. Hopefully it hits 1 million. I want to see all the Xenoblade games at 1 million plus. Counting the Wii U version, I'm sure it is, but still wanted to address that real quick. Xenoblade X, the game I think we were all hoping did really well. Doesn't seem like it lit the world on fire, but really it didn't need to. It was a late life Switch game, really the last major Switch game before Switch 2, and it's a remaster of a Wii U game. I doubt Nintendo had high expectations for it. It did what it's gonna do, and it will sell over time to Xenoblade fans. But let's get into the charts that Pierre has for us here. Donkey Kong Country Returns HD debuted with 1.27 million units shipped, beating the launch of the 3DS remaster, including all 3 versions. Returns exceeded 10.74 million units, making it the franchise's second best seller. I gotta be honest, I mean, this is the theme that we saw all throughout last year of me, at least me personally speaking, expecting higher from a lot of these ports and remasters of great games that sold incredibly well on the original platform. Think about Luigi's Mansion HD, Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. When you compare it to the software sales that we were seeing a little bit earlier in the Switch One's life cycle, even in 2023 with a lot of those games, Donkey Kong Country Returns HD falls in more in line with like a Thousand Year Door or Luigi's Mansion 2 HD in that. I'm not really that impressed here. So of course on the Wii originally it sold over 6 million, on 3DS it sold just under 3 million, and then I think you're really seeing that fatigue, that franchise fatigue with Country Returns HD only doing 1.27, which is fine. I mean, it's good. It's great even for a $60 remaster of a Wii game that, I doubt they put too much money into. But on the other hand, I feel like with how much marketing they put into this game, I mean, this has become a meme, how much they marketed Country Returns HD on their social media. It only doing 1.27. I mean, that's weaker software sales at launch than Luigi's Mansion 2 HD last year, which is very surprising. I mean, Donkey Kong can be a 10 million seller if positioned properly. I feel like they just don't know how to do it. So we'll see what happens with Bonanza. Bonanza should be a game that sells for a very long time on Nintendo Switch 2. But yeah, I would say softer sales for this than I expected. It just goes to show that people are done with their Switch in terms of buying games, really. Or at the very least, you know, it's people buying a Switch now and buying their copy of Mario Kart, their Breath of the Wild, not necessarily interested in a Country Returns HD. And then even if they do want a 2D Donkey Kong, you can usually get Tropical Freeze for cheaper, and most people say it's a better game. It's just a matter of sequel fatigue, where usually we get one thing per franchise per system. Switch, we're seeing a lot of duplicates here, and when people buy into the console for the first time, they're going to buy the thing that came out first, and in the case of many Switch 1 series, the thing that came out first is usually better, like Luigi's Mansion 3, for example. But Super Mario Party Jamboree, this is a whole different ballpark. This game is an absolute juggernaut. I still haven't put too much time into this. I know people really love it, but Super Mario Party Jamboree shipped over 1.31 million units this quarter, so January through March 31st, which is crazy, you know, just casually in the late winter, early spring timeframe. The game is now at 7.48 million units, fastest selling title in the franchise. It will soon become the third best selling Mario Party game, so it's about to pass Mario Party 8 and DS here. Crazy sales for this game. It's no wonder Nintendo has a Switch 2 edition of this game ready to go. And honestly, with that Switch 2 edition, having a Switch 2 box on store shelves, I don't know if it ever passes Super Mario Party, because that game is still also selling really well. And Mario Party Superstars did great, of course, too. But Jamboree, I think Jamboree is going to pass it because of that Switch 2 edition. The Switch 2 edition of Jamboree is going to give that game an extra lease on life, so to speak, that Mario Party Superstars didn't really have. So great stuff for Nintendo Cube, as we know them now, the formerly Indie Cube. Mario Party's back on track, and I'm excited to see what the next entry does. I mean, this is one of the rare examples of a late life Switch 1 game that just kept selling. It just keeps going. 1.3 million units this quarter for a Mario Party game. I think that's a holiday seller, right? Like, that is a thing that's going to sell big during the holiday. No, it's selling big right now in, you know, March and April. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe shipped another 850,000 copies this quarter. The sales are now at 68.2 million. Together with the Wii U version, the title now exceeds 76 million units. Wii Sports lifetime sales are within reach, with only 6.24 million units separating them. What an accomplishment. It's funny to see the quarter-by-quarter breakdown where you see that spike every holiday when they have the Mario Kart Switch bundles. But, I mean, I'm curious to see how well this game sells when Mario Kart World is out, because people will still keep buying their Nintendo Switches, even if it's not in mass. You have to imagine little Timmy can't afford a Switch 2 for Christmas. They're gonna Switch 1 for him. Mario Kart would probably be the game they get. So even with Mario Kart World coming out, I still think this is going to pass Wii Sports, as Pierre said there. 68 million. What the heck, man? I wonder if Nintendo thought that this would ever even come close to being possible when they ported this Wii U game to the Switch. Echoes of Wisdom did pretty well and continues to do well, shipping another 180,000 units during the first quarter. Now over 4 million units shipped to date. Outsold Oracle of Seasons and Ages, as well as A Link Between Worlds. I don't know if I like that. A Link Between Worlds is a much better game, but hey, Echoes of Wisdom, 2D Zelda, staying strong, doing well. This game is going to end up passing Phantom Hourglass as well as Adventure of Link. Can it end up getting to that 7 million or so range of the original game? Probably not, but still, I mean, if it passes Phantom Hourglass and Adventure of Link, Zelda 2, that would still make it the fourth best-selling 2D Zelda game, sorry. Of course, Link's Awakening counting the remake here, so that's why it's so much higher. Echoes of Wisdom, strong game. I think we will see another 2D Zelda adventure starring Zelda. I think that is what that number tells you. Nintendo did not falter. They did not lose any sales because of that choice, so Grezzo almost certainly cooking up another one. Very exciting stuff. Good news for Mario & Luigi Brothership fans. I know this is a controversial title, but as you all know, I love this game. Shipped another 130,000 units this quarter during its second quarter overall. Total shipment of 1.97 million. It's on course to eventually overtake Superstar Saga. So that's what its Q4 sales last year were. Q1 this year, 130K. So yeah, it's about to overtake Superstar Saga on the GBA at 2.15. It's likely going to outsell Thousand Year Door on Switch, I want to say. We will see. Mario RPG sales are weird, especially those past three, because they did release 3 in such a Spitfire. But honestly, the whole Mario RPG fatigue thing doesn't seem to be all too accurate. Now, The fact that a new title in the form of Brothership hasn't already outsold Thousand Year Door, I would say is a little disappointing, especially since it is a much better game than Thousand Year Door. But generally speaking, it looks like if you have a good Mario RPG out on a well-selling console, I would say the floor is 2 million, right? We have a couple exceptions here that didn't hit 2 million, but, you know, Paper Mario in 64 sold really poorly. Paper Jam was a game people didn't really like, but also a late life 3DS game. And then Color Splash, honestly, 870,000 units for Color Splash, all things considered, not really that bad. So Mario RPGs kind of have a floor, I feel like, of around that 2 million range. We'll see how much they continue to sell beyond that. And carrying on here with Thousand Year Door, it's now over 2.1 million units, shipped another 40K copies in the last quarter. So slowing down compared to Brothership, but also Brothership released like 6 months later. So those two games are likely going to end up kind of flatlining. Thousand Year Door might have better legs just because it is a legendary title. People always talk about Thousand Year Door. So even in 10 years, if someone's looking for a great Mario RPG on Switch 2 and they go to the Switch eShop, they might look up Thousand Year Door and not Brothership. So I think Thousand Year Door will stay on top, at least when talking about those two specifically. It's certainly not going to come anywhere close to Origami King, I don't think. But I mean, crazier things have happened. Maybe this game will have insane legs, but it doesn't seem like it. Luigi's Mansion 2 HD shipped another 80,000 this quarter, now over 1.88 million units. This one is one I talk about a lot, and that I thought it was going to do way better just because it is Luigi's Mansion. Luigi's Mansion had a whole new wave of fans come in with the third entry on Switch, but didn't really seem to move the needle too much. But hey, even though I'm not the biggest Dark Moon fan, it's nice that it is on Switch. Of course, we're getting Luigi's Mansion 1 through GameCube NSO on Switch 2, so we will have all of them playable on one platform, which is pretty great as a overall big Luigi's Mansion fan. I'm not the biggest Dark Moon fan, as you all know. Mario Wonder shipped another 520k units in 3 months, over 16 million units shipped to date. It should eventually top 20 million. The question for me is, can this game ever outpace New Super Mario Bros. U? Probably not, but still, it's a nice dream. You have to imagine a lot of these sales are leftover stock from Christmas because they had that Mario Wonder bundle. In fact, I think they actually had another Mario Wonder bundle around March for Mario Day. So this game's being bundled in with consoles. It's going to keep selling. We will see what the ceiling on this is. I actually think, I take it back. I do think this will eventually outsell New Super Mario Bros. U because I've talked about this in videos before. I think Mario Wonder is going to get a Switch 2 edition, so it will have a whole nother lease on life that will keep it selling for many, many years to come. Certainly one of the biggest revelations from all these numbers from Nintendo is that Scarlet and Violet shipped another 410,000 units, making it the second best-selling set of Pokemon games. They managed to pass Sword and Shield, which was the previous best. So now the top three are Red, Blue, and Green, Scarlet and Violet, down to Sword and Shield. And, you know, for so long, Gold and Silver had that number 2 spot, but now we have 2 sets of Switch games that are in there. I'm excited to see how Legends Arceus does, but then really Gen 10 next year. Now, that'll almost certainly be a Switch 2 exclusive, so we'll see how the sales go there. It'll be a little bit slower, but can they repeat the Pokemon success here on the Switch 2? Probably. I think Pokemon is just here to stay. Like, it's just here to stay, and it's only growing bigger and bigger every year. So the next mainline set of games will probably sell at least in that 20 million ballpark, but, you know, if they really take their time and get the quality up. I mean, Pokemon, with where Pokemon is at as a franchise, the games really should be selling like 30 million copies, right? If they can just get the quality there and maybe take some time off in between games, as we're seeing now with Legends ZA, they should have no issue selling 30 million copies of a new generation, in my opinion. I think on the Switch 2, we will see this number beaten for Red, Blue, and Green. I think that's going to happen in the next 10 years or so. We'll go rapid fire on a few of these here. Tears of the Kingdom shipped another 180k units. More than 57% of 3D Zelda game sales were on Nintendo Switch because these two games are just absolute juggernauts. Totally crazy. I mean, listen, I'm sympathetic to all the people that want a traditional 3D Zelda, and I think we will get an Ocarina of Time remake eventually, but you look at these numbers and it just doesn't make any sense. Nintendo is a company that is willing to, you know, compromise with the fandoms, and they'll make it another code, and they'll make an Endless Ocean, these games that are not going to light the world on fire. But when it comes to Zelda, I think you're going to be hard-pressed to get a new traditional dungeon-based 3D Zelda from the Zelda team anyway. Maybe we get it from another team, but with how well these do, I mean, we're not leaving open world ever for mainline Zelda, I don't think. Animal Crossing New Horizons shipped another 380k, now at 47.82, just an absolute juggernaut. I'm curious how the next Animal Crossing does without like the COVID bump, but also Animal Crossing is just huge now. I mean, it's one of their biggest franchises, so New Leaf did really well, and so did Wild World, but how does a new Animal Crossing in a post New Horizons world do on a Switch 2? That is, $450. That's going to be, I'm excited to see how that does. Smash Bros. Ultimate, $360K in the past quarter. This one's just kind of steadily rising. I think it'll probably end up hitting that 40 million, which will bring it to a very prestigious group of games, not just on Nintendo Switch, but also just overall, that will make it one of the best-selling games of all time. And I mean, it already is at 36 million, but 40 million is like a barrier I feel like a lot of games do not hit. Even some of the best-selling games, a lot of those Wii titles did not break 40 million, but Smash Bros. Ultimate, we're not going to get a Smash Bros. Game on Switch 2 for a while. We might even get a Switch 2 edition of Smash Ultimate with new characters, so 40 million... maybe even 50 million if they do a Switch 2 edition. That would not surprise me, to be completely honest. Breath of the Wild, another 190k units here, now at 34.51. Same thing here, honestly. This game is going to hit 40 million as they have these Switch 2 editions coming out. Tears of the Kingdom will also see a boost from that, of course, but they're going to have that shelf life for so much longer. They're going to be advertised as Switch 2 games. A lot of people will pay the upgrade or pay for a new copy, even though you don't necessarily need to with the expansion pass for the 4K versions of these games. So Breath of the Wild gonna hit 40k. Tears of the Kingdom, even though it's only at 21.73, I think lifetime you see it at least past 30, but these are some of the greatest games ever made. You're going to see them selling for decades to come, I mean, as long as the eShop stays around and you can buy these games, even if they never go down in price, if they're $70 or whatever, they're going to keep selling as new fans are introduced to the series, new people that were not Nintendo fans buying Nintendo Switch. Literally, as new children are being born, you're going to see those numbers keep rising forever, probably. Mario Odyssey, another 240k. 3D World plus Bowser's Fury is the second best, but Odyssey has double that amount sold. Sword and Shield, we already kind of talked about Pokemon, 120k. So even Sword and Shield Generation 8, like that's still selling pretty well, all things considered. Super Mario Party, another 60k. So the original Mario Party game on Switch that released 7 years ago, still doing just a casual 60k every quarter, That is crazy. Over 20 million for that game. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, 190k for that game. That's the game I really wonder about. Mario Kart, I'm sure they, knew it was going to do really well. Did they think that New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe was going to be this type of juggernaut? I don't know, man. I mean, probably. Here we go. Now we're talking. This is a real game right here. Nintendo Switch Sports shipped 530k in Q1 2025 with now over 16.27 million units to date. This is the secret gem of the Switch here. Just keep selling. Switch Sports Resort, you have to imagine, or Switch Sports 2. They'll probably call it 2 because it's Nintendo Switch 2. That's going to come out within the next 18 months, I would say. That's something that has to be close to being finished since Switch Sports came out in early 2022. You imagine that team immediately started on a Switch 2 sequel. And I mean, this number is crazy because these two games, Wii Sports and Wii Sports Resort, were pack-in games. Wii Sports Resort, not as much, but these were both games that really came with Wiis. I remember getting Wii Sports Resort with a Wii in like 2009. My mom bought one for Netflix and it came in that bundle. So Switch Sports has had some bundles, but for it to mostly sell on its own and hit that 16 million mark, that's nuts, man. I mean, that type of game was dead for a while when the Wii U was failing and Nintendo wasn't doing all too well, but it's clear that there is still a demand for that casual software, and it's proof that it can coexist, where the Switch is a more core, hardcore gaming device, where you have games like Cyberpunk on it, or, on Switch 2, of course, or Witcher 3 on Switch 1. You can still have a console that has these casual games that sell, 10 plus million copies. And I just think that's really cool. And also I like Switch Sports a lot, more than most people. And then finally here, my favorite chart from Pierre. Make sure I get their @ in the image here. From Pierre485, once again, follow them on Twitter for all their amazing charts. They have this one here that goes over all of the million plus sellers on Nintendo Switch. And as of this latest updates, you can see we are at 73 million sellers on the Nintendo Switch from first party. There are, of course, third party games that have sold that much, but just a trip down memory lane. Look at Fire Emblem Engage at 1.6 million. Good for you, Fire Emblem Engage. That's actually not that good, but Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, new Pokemon Snap, you got Mario Strikers Arms, but then you have those top 10, of course, and then you go a little bit further down. It's just nice to see everything ordered out here. Splatoon 2 at 19. I remember when that was like number 2 or 3 back in the day. Splatoon 3, though, Splatoon 3, probably not going to pass it, but it's not too far away. Nah, because Splatoon 4 has got to be close. Maybe not close, but within the next 2 or 3 years, I don't think Splatoon 3 will pass Splatoon 2. Mario Maker 2, secretly up there. Kirby and the Forgotten Land, of course, the best-selling Kirby game. Always fun just to look at these charts. And that is going to do it for today's video. Of course, if you enjoy Nintendo numbers like this, we do a big video every 3 months when they drop the numbers on us. Although I imagine we'll have something similar to this a little bit sooner with the Switch 2. I think if it does really well out the gate, which it likely will, Nintendo will probably talk about sales numbers pretty early on before their next financial meeting. So we'll talk more sales numbers, I'm sure, in the coming weeks and months. Of course, if you are new here, though, and you enjoy this type of content, I would appreciate you liking the video and subscribing. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames. Check out my other channel at @itsamiibo. And of course, you can click on one of these two videos to listen to me ramble about even more Nintendo nonsense. Until next time, folks, peace.